Gentlemen, good morning. Authorities and representatives of the energy sector in the region, on behalf of the Ministry of Industry, Mining and Energy, OLADE, the Ministry of Industry, the Inter-American Development Bank, and the IEA and IRENA, welcome. We would like to thank you all for being here. Special guests, attendees to this 8th Energy Week and first Forum of Investment for the Energy Transition in Latin America. It's an honor to welcome you all to this very special moment, this closing ceremony. We are here to celebrate the achievements made to reflect upon the barriers overcome and to look into the future of the energy scenario. We would like to thank all the speakers, sponsors, collaborators, and of course to each and every one of you for your active participation and commitment shown in this week. Your dedication and hard work made this event possible and has contributed to increasing our knowledge on this area. In all these days, we have analyzed topics connected to energy, technological innovation, public policy, sustainability. We've had the opportunity of learning from experts and leaders in the sector. This has been inspiring and educational. Apart from that, we have shared ideas and working together to face the energy challenges that we're going to be facing as a society. To close this week, it is a pleasure for us to introduce you to this unique panel. We have gathered the former presidents of the Republic that have also played key functions in the social and technical development of the country. They have made a difference in this area. In this session, we are going to be listening to their experiences, perspective on the future of energy. This is a very formal ceremony, and I really would like to say that it's a pleasure to be here and an honor to be here. And now I invite you to come on stage to Julio Maria Sanguinetti, President of the Republic in 1985 and 1990, 1995, 2000. President Sanguinetti, please come to stage. President Luis Alberto Lacalle Herrera, President of the Republic between 1990 and 1995. Thank you very much for being here. A round of applause, please. President José Alberto Mujica, President of the country between 2010 and 2015. And this panel will be moderated by Fitzgerald Cantero, current National Director of Energy. Well, thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here moderating this panel. In this moment, right, where we are closing a great week that we've had in Montevideo with several colleagues from all over the region, with several colleagues from the OLADE universe, 27 countries from Latin America and the Caribbean, with our colleagues from IRENA, people from all over the world, and also with that feeling that having in this closing ceremony, after a week of hard work, we have organized in the ministry together with OLADE, IRENA, and the Inter-American Development Bank. So it's a great honor for me to moderate this conversation, to facilitate these exchanges by these three very important people. And something that we like doing here, even their former president, we'd like to address these people as presidents. And there's the respect that we feel for all of them. It's a week that started last Monday. And at the opening ceremony, we had Enrique Iglesias. And then we had a presentation by the President Michelle Bachelet. So now we're having the pleasure of sharing this moment with these three presidents. I would like to especially thank you for being here, and especially because of the signal that you are showing, especially to the young ones, because you are showing that you can feel passion for public issues, as you do. You can have different approaches, or very different approaches to different issues, as it is your case. But at the same time, you can exchange ideas, get together, sitting at the same table, being respectful. And probably that is a clear note of wisdom. And this is a very powerful message, believe me, and not very common in the current world. And I would also like to share with our guests that this is not the first time that we have these three presidents together. Every time we have important problems to solve, they have got together, and we are proud of having them today to talk about energy. So now we are here to talk about energy, and you know that when we talk about energy, this involves planning, and you have led processes where planning it is fundamental, and where issues are not solved overnight. But there's a lot of effort in these kind of processes. So here in Uruguay, regarding energy, we have done important work, and that allows us to continue with our planning so that we can have a long-term vision that has been built along the years. So as an icebreaker, I would like to ask you, what do you think should be done when it comes to planning, vision, and energy, so that we can continue along this path to adapt to the new times and these ever-changing conditions? And how can we together work on this topic as a national cause? And how do you imagine all this in the future? Let's start with President Julio Maria Sanguinetti. Thank you very much. To begin with, I would like to say that just a few days ago, we celebrated the 140th anniversary of the first light bulb in Uruguay. It was an important celebration that took place at the Anglo processing plant in Fray Bentos, That was the Industrial Revolution getting here to this country that was so far away. When you think about this with the perspective of time, you realize about the scientific development, the complexity of economy, the complexity of social organization, and in these last years, this phenomenon of globalization that has been a challenge for all of us. Also, context, because some events, such as, for instance, the pandemic or these wars, Russia, Ukraine, things that nobody was expecting, and unfortunately they have also had significant impacts on energy, and they have shown in a way the perspective of time, because the case of Germany is the most significant, because once all these events took place, they found out that they were dependent from the energy standpoint. And those are new challenges. And now we have this concept of national security when it comes to having access to energy that is fundamental for a country to function. We're in this transition stage. And that makes us think about the future. And we need to be humble for that. The things that we are experimenting today were in some cases surprising or unexpected. But in this case, there's no question if we think about our country, we can feel that the country has had an energy development that has been significant, 98% today using renewable energies. In 1930, we started with hydraulic development. I don't know if the right word is planning, but at least to take into account, trying to anticipate and having some actions implemented just in case. Thank you very much, Mr. President, President Lacalle. I think that the fact that we are here, the three of us, is the continuity of some policies within a political environment that discusses things, discusses with a lot of passion. In some cases we go through very difficult moments, but we have learned to maintain or to keep some lines of actions during different governments. The forestry law, for instance, is one of the big successes of the political system in Uruguay. And it's the main product for exports. The ports law, again, there has been debate about it, but still there, but it has a geopolitical function of the Uruguay, not only to be the best port for Uruguay, but also for the region. And the multiplicity of ports as the one that Paraguay is building now. And energy is another one. These figures that you are very familiar with about the percentage of natural sustainable generation of energy in Uruguay, more than 90%. When you compare that to global figures, is something to be very proud of. It's a country that can show an energy mix with modern elements ahead of its times, and also has been the result of the continuity of different governments. And I think, Fitzgerald, that that is something that we needed to highlight, especially to our visitors here. It's not that because we are better than anyone, it's just to highlight the fact that we have found a mechanism to separate political struggles from the very important topics. And of course, we need to take into account green hydrogen. That is our next challenge. And that next year we'll find all the actors involved in this trying to implement it as a national policy. President Mujica, please. Dear friends, I'm sorry about this. I'm not an expert on the topic, even though I have suffered with this topic. Having said that, I would like to add my comments thanks to the experience that we had. Because ideas, they also go through periods in which some of them are fashionable or trendy. I cannot forget that when President Jorge Valle was the president of this country, there was an expert, I remember, in our electricity utility company, whose name I don't want to remember, told us in Congress that we didn't need to worry about new investment in generation, because liberal reforms implemented in Argentina in the electric market were saying that the best thing to do was to start buying electricity to Argentina, because it was gonna be cheaper. And that was the trend at the time. And that defined some policies, and we spent like 10 years, probably in good faith. We experts thought about that. People that learned or knew way more than us. And then, because of life, in 1989, I think, we had a drought that was very, very important, and we had to build a power station in very short time. And after that, we started learning, both experts and politicians, until we were able in 2010 to sit down and reach an agreement and understand that we needed to change, that we needed to change to expand the energy mix in the country. And that decision was made by the whole political system. And the result of that was perfect, spectacular, because nothing of this happened because of magic, but we built a group of policies that developed investment in wind energy. We found the resources, and there was a leap that if in 2005 we have 37% of renewable energy, in 2019 we reached 60% of the energy was renewable. But at the same time, we had increased the amount of energy produced in the country of almost 130%. And this small country could do that. You know why? Because there was national unity behind that. That, of course, it does not imply to agree to everything. That was an achievement of the country. And I think that there's a message behind that, a message for the future. This energy issue is so important that it is really worth spending time on this and try to plan visions a decade ahead, and getting together every 4 or 5 years and try to reach national agreements. There are many areas in which we can have differences. Democracy has the advantage that allows us to think differently. But there are some things that require, and especially in small countries, we should find common solutions. And that was useful for some other thing. It helps us, it made it possible for us to save a lot of money. In some cases, we spent like $3.5 billion between 2003 and 2013 buying oil to produce electricity. Every year we had a drought, we suffered a drought. It was very complicated. I think in 1912, I think we spent $800 million in fuel. Replacing those for renewable sources gave us a break. But apart from that, instead of buying energy all the time to our neighbors, basically Argentina, now we were buyers and now we are selling our surplus. It sounds even ridiculous that a very small country can sell energy, electricity to these huge neighbors. And all this was possible because we had that national agreement that allowed us to do so. I think that this is a political lesson that we need to maintain in time, because Latin American brothers and sisters, the more we work together, the more defense systems we have for moments of crisis. If something that we need to have in this integration process is to build a system that can transfer energy throughout our America. Thank you. Thank you, President Mujica. I would like to highlight the concept shared by my colleague here, to highlight the fact that we discussed this a lot. In 1997, when the Energy Framework Law and the regulatory unit was created, there was a huge debate about how much to regulate, how much not to regulate. The second debate was how much participation of the private sector and how much participation of the public sector. And those debates took very long, and the same happened the following year with the next law, until little by little we were able to define it. Then there was a change in government, a change in political parties, and finally we got a version of something that we call now a national policy. And today we had to focus on other topics, as you mentioned. Because after this first transition, basically the one involving stop using fossil fuels and starting using renewable fuels. And now the second stage, the environment is very, very relevant. Carbon emissions is also a very important issue to take into account. And unfortunately, the world is not going in the right direction because all these wars had a terrible negative impact on this. Even coal that nobody liked. Remember the times of the foggy London. Now it's also a player, and in some cases 80% of fuels are those that we want to have replaced. So for us as a country, we are facing these challenges, and I think that the most important one is connected to mobility. In our country, 50% of carbon emissions are connected to the transportation sector. And in that area, some countries, and at different pace, countries are starting addressing this issue. Here in Uruguay, it's a significant challenge that we are facing. The second topic has to do with energy efficiency, and we have made a lot of progress in that. Basically, trying not to waste so much energy, trying to find a more intelligent way of using energy. We have made progress in electricity use, not so much in the mobility sector, where we are taking our first steps. But those are the paths that we need to start exploring. But in a way, they represent an important challenge in the future. Let me tell you once again, within these two perspectives, that is basically to continue with the development of the country that requires energy. As my colleague Mujica was saying, it was surprising that we could export energy. And we went through that debate also. With Argentina, we had an old relationship and we had a shared energy plant. However, Brazil has been an excellent market for us for our exports of energy. And also in some critical situations we were importing energy from Brazil. Summing up, I think that those are the challenges that we will be facing, and we need to make progress as quick as possible so that we can start with this second stage that will generate what is already happening, this very important change in all dimensions of the activity, from transportation up to production.
Thank you, President Lacalle. It's interesting. It is interesting when we don't just look at the country, but also the region. We have a quite comprehensive electric grid in a big circle that covers one of the regions in the world where we have more renewables in use. Our dam system in Paraguay, Argentina, Brazil, and Uruguay is, around the world, I would say, one of the main assets, biggest assets we have. But also we need to contemplate our foreign affairs. We have the Minister of Foreign Affairs currently in office, who is the most energetic. So let's mention some aspects. For example, when buying energy from Paraguay, Argentina would charge to us an excessive fee. Foreign affairs. We should remember the gas pipelines is not just about power or electricity. The gas pipeline, I don't know what we could use it for, maybe for cockroaches to go from one place to the next. But if in Argentina things are better after the 19th, and we could really maximize the great potential in Vaca Muerta, that is a given. I mean, it is reasonable, and it had been considered for El Tigre plant and for Mexenicena, and Montevideo, the use of their gas, which is another type of energy that we have at hand. But again, this is contingent on the international affairs. Many times we speak about integration, and how many times do we get to integration to 100%? I think we should do it in parts. I think it is easier to address one topic, to sort it out, to solve it, like energy integration, which again, it's already in place. It is almost completed when it comes to electricity. Buenos Aires uses more energy in the summer due to air conditioning, and we export significant amounts because we switch the lever and the power goes to Argentina. Now, power dispatch is something that we need to take into account. So how do we manage? We have one actor that is assigning or allocating energy, whether it's at night, whether it's noon, whether it's summer or winter in one country. And if you cannot store it, if you cannot accumulate it, we need to use it, and we need to use it in the more efficient way possible. Another thing to stress is that we no longer consider public-private actors as opposites. Private generation was bought by UTE to be used, and I think that was a very timely decision. In Rivera, there's a company that wanted to install energy production using 20% of that production. To install a plant to use only 20%, well, was not marked. So UTE bought 80%, 20% was then used by the company, and that company then increased their own consumption until they reached a profitable level. So public-private actors should be partners. Let's assign their roles, but let's not speak about privatization like private's bad. We need to realize that cooperation in terms of energy has been successful. I think these are aspects that we need to consider as big achievements, but also as challenges, like the international use of energy and international affairs and relationships with Argentina and Brazil that are still the main priorities for our country. President Lacalle, thank you so much. President Mujica, any other comments? Well, this is interesting for the new Minister of Foreign Affairs. I love Argentina, but really they did us bad. They are not there for us when we need them. We have this huge pipeline across the Uruguay River that's never had any gas in it. And we embarked in the very costly Delta del Tigre plant for a combined cycle. And it was even more expensive because of that. Because UTE experts would recommend, if you are able to make it work with gas, energy is cheaper and the equipment will last longer. That was the main purpose of the Argentinian gas. It didn't happen. I'm happy we went for a combined cycle. But when a country is so largely dependent on power and hydroelectricity, we have the risk of drought. And we need a contingency. We need the thermal capacity or alternative ways of generating power, as it has happened. And that plant that's not being promoted, but considering the dimensions and the size of Uruguay, it is really significant because it can produce as much energy as the 3 dams that we have in Rio Negro, in the Rio Negro River. This is an investment the country made with gas in mind. So we have had repeated failures with gas. We need to find solutions with Argentina that are safe agreements. If that large amount of gas that they have available is ever made available, I think that should be a short-term goal. I know there is a bank that is offering funding the connection, that potential connection to Argentina. But now, to have in mind, we should not forget what has happened. And I agree with what has been said. This is great news, and I'm happy you raised the topic. We've had important meetings this week, and we are working towards that. Argentina has now more gas available, and I know there will be more opportunities. And I'm happy that you raised this topic yourselves. Now, speaking about changes, about what Lacalle said, some of the big opportunities, hydrogen. President Mujica spoke about the technical reports, political decisions, the importance of power, energy cooperation, public-private partnerships, changes, as Sanguinete mentioned, and the geopolitics around the world. Now, if we look at the region, now the world's changing, and the world wants to further promote renewables, even though we are now, well, Europe is now on hold, so to speak, due to war. Latin America and the Caribbean have been successful, have had successful endeavors, like in terms of hydropower. Now we are among the 20 best around the world when it comes to renewables. So we are doing things quite well, and there should be more opportunities. In addition, we have relocalized different industries in the region, and that opens up new opportunities for Latin America, companies coming from Asia, trying to bring their production to the US, to Europe. So should that lead to more job positions for capacity building, training, innovation, and development? For this new round, and maybe we will start with President Mujica. If you had to define what are the key elements where we should focus, where our countries should focus to really leverage opportunities and tackle challenges, what would you suggest Latin American countries? Where should we focus on? Latin America is a contradiction. We have 27% of agricultural land, 30% of fresh water. Now, we are sitting on the aquifer, on the Guarani aquifer, and we are not aware of what that means. We don't know what that means. We're full of contradictions. It's such a vast question that I love it. I love that fish, but it is not adequate for this fish bowl. I think that would require further discussion. Now let's try to focus on our country alone. We need irrigation. I think that is the quickest way of increasing our GDP. And that means that we need to use water resources better, we need to store it better, but we need more energy for gas.
We have a commitment in the short term as a country. We are food producers, and we will continue producing food for a long time. And we shouldn't believe that industrializing and having furnaces is all we need. We need to generate value in the short term. We have corn that is hybrid corn and an industrial project. The Netherlands is a country as big as Canelones, and is the second largest agricultural export in the world because they sell smart people. I think there's a concept that we need to review, and this all pertains to energy. There is a large battle to increase investment in renewable energy. In this country, at least. Not just because of environment, but also because of the financial feasibility of doing this. Green hydrogen is formidable. But rest easy. It's still green. We need to improve in cost efficiency. It is hard to pay for 3 energy units to cover 1. This is like a very expensive battery. But it is a strategic need in the world, without a doubt. And we shouldn't just be on the side looking in. We gotta get in there. We have to learn and we have to develop this because this is the well-being of our people. But today we're facing a challenge, which is the development of alternative sources. And I think the country still has a way to go. In cars, imagine, and engines. I have a tricycle because I can't walk, and it's electrical, it's Chinese. I can load it in my house, and it's amazing to have that. And it's not made for me to be in the countryside. I'm doing something terrible with a tricycle, but it is so much more comfortable than using a combustion engine vehicle, and that's incredible, and that is here to stay. It is a true leap, and we have a world ahead of us there. So this is a time where we need to place an emphasis on this. And we need to start looking at all those aspects together. It is not the first time, Mr. President, where we have e-vehicles. I mean, once upon a time we had them too, right? I mean, well, we had to turn a lever to move the engine. Anyway, what President Lacache was talking about was an episode during World War II where we didn't have sufficient oil, and that led to having automobiles with a gas system that was using coal. You had like a water heater in there, like the ones that we had in our households. We had coal there, and they had a chimney, and the cars had that monstrous device on them and a chimney. It was awful, but it was what we could use at the time of scarcity. We always have to remember what happened before. At a time of scarcity, we had to be resourceful. Nowadays, we have an affluent world in which we need to manage the excess rather than scarcity. Now, where do we place our priorities? Well, we have defined them and we coincide. One of the biggest priorities for us is electromobility. We are making significant investments in that area in the country because of course we need to develop an infrastructure that is necessary to deal with those loads, and that's something we're doing and we will continue doing it. We also need to talk about water, as my colleague here is mentioning. We need to talk about water and energy. The water needs to have better watering systems than it has in order to double and triple its production in the years to come, and that's something that is clear for all of us. But for that we need investment, more energy at better prices. So I think of those spaces as the most important spaces for us.
And I believe that we need to insist in this efficiency mechanism because we're wasting too much. Now we have realized on how to protect waters. We didn't do that in the past. Now even when you're brushing your teeth, you try to, you close the tap just in case, because now we have realized about the importance of the resource and we don't want to waste it. That is a new, I mean, we have become more aware. And I know that new generations know about this. They are more aware of the environment, of natural resources, and that will help us in this path. And Uruguay is making a huge investment. UTE is now investing $1.4 billion, and with that they will close the circuit in the north and the circuit to Brazil that is fundamental for this regional development that we have. And it has been really revolutionary. I remember when we were discussing this about the energy market, and at the time it seemed like some weird invention. There were many people against it. We need to have our own energy, they said. And the energy market has been, in a way, has represented a structural change throughout the region, and that is a priority. Thing is that now we need to be better oriented by scientists, by experts in technology, so that we can really focus on these priorities that we have ahead. Thank you very much, Mr. President. President Lacache. I think that just wrapping up, I think that we should not be afraid of new things. And that is something that we need to promote in the country. Of course that we need to preserve things, but not being afraid of new things, especially not in the technical world. We talked about the use of gas in the past. I remember that in my old vehicle, when the engine went off, there was like a weird sound. I'm that old, imagine. But also in some places, in some warehouses, they have a gas tank in the vehicles. For instance, forklifts, and we see that, and we see taxi cabs in Buenos Aires that are powered by using gas. And we shouldn't be afraid of that, because we know that diversifying the use of energy is the best possible way. For instance, windmill, offshore, and the minister knows about that. When he was the Ministry of Energy, not long ago, in the English bank we have 80 centimeters of water, no more than that. And on the bottom they have rocks. In Europe they had offshore windmills because it's easier to operate. And there we have, in the English bank, we have the possibility of having a wind farm in the River Plate. Also, we need to take into account green hydrogen, how to break up the water molecule. And we need to think about all these scientific aspects. Everything starts when we think about it. Training is fundamental. We need to promote training in science, because that is the advantage that we have. It's in our brains, and we shouldn't be afraid of science or mathematics, and it has always been. Sciences are those that open doors. When we think about, for instance, green hydrogen, we need to have the knowledge and the brains for that, because they promote all the other activities. So basically, dear guests, you have had a lot of everything: international politics and a lot of food for thought, let's say. So once we have free transit in the region, and it doesn't depend on the governor or Buenos Aires, Neuquén, for us to have gas or energy traveling from one country to the other without paying any tariffs, or even the most local aspects, that is the incredible possibility of decentralizing generation. Wind farms and solar panel farms that are better used in the northern part of the country, that will help us to generate electricity and energy in our country. And I say that our country, we know that all these are problems shared by all of us.
So I don't know if these are good contributions, but that's what we wanted to say. Thank you all. Thank you all. We could stay here with you the entire afternoon, but thank you so much.
Necesita el elevador. Necesita el elevador, adiós. Está bravo.
Muchísimas gracias, presidente.
Thank you, Presidents, thank you, Director, for such meaningful closing ceremony. And of course, there's a lot of food for thought. What the presidents have said is quite rich. Thank you.
Bueno, muchas gracias.
Thank you all.
Vamos a seguir adelante con esta actividad.
So we will continue with our closing ceremony. I'll ask you to please stay in your seats, and we will now continue with our agenda.
La energía, como ustedes bien saben, es un recurso fundamental que
Energy, as you know, is one of the critical resources for our day-to-day life, our actions, our world, and our continuous commitment to innovation, cooperation, and sustainability, which is critical for a brilliant energy and just future. To finish our 8th Energy Week, let's welcome Gurgus Gorul, the Director of Alliances and IRENA Supports. Mr. Grom, you have the floor.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is really a great pleasure for me to deliver some closing remarks on behalf of IRENA Director General Francesco La Camera, who had to leave earlier today. And this year is an important year for us in terms of our participation in Olade Energy Week. We have been part of it for years, but this year we have taken it to the next stage, next step. And we have organized first ever energy transition investment forum in Latin America in conjunction with the Olade Energy Week. And for that, I would like to thank the government of Uruguay, especially the Ministry of Industry, Energy and Mines, along with our partners, Olade and IDB, for close cooperation in making this happen. In fact, the Olade Energy Week, it offers a very solid platform for discussion of energy issues related to surrounding energy development in Latin America and Caribbean region. And this year, our investment forum has provided an important contribution and provided an important dimension to the discussions, highlighting the energy transition ambition of the region, with particular emphasis on creating right enabling frameworks conducive to energy transition investments, but also how we can facilitate investments, how we can facilitate projects and provide support to those projects. We had deep dive sessions on several topics. We have looked to the investment and finance from developers' perspective, from the financiers' perspective. We have also organized matchmaking sessions, bringing together project stakeholders, developers, financiers, and several sessions took place very productively, and we are very much looking forward that some of those projects will achieve financial closure in the coming months. Ladies and gentlemen, it was really a great pleasure to hear the energy vision of the former presidents of Uruguay and how energy landscape has evolved over decades in Uruguay. In fact, energy landscape is continuing to evolve, continuing to change. And we have same and similar challenges of energy security, socioeconomic development, maybe a little bit more on the climate change side, climate challenge. But we don't have necessarily the same set of solutions. We are more talking about decarbonization because of climate. We are more talking about decentralized systems because of more renewables coming into the systems. We are more talking about digitalization, how we can use the ICT or vast amount of data we collect and we use it in a smart way to run our energy systems. And when we look at the decarbonization side and the driver as climate, in fact, in a couple of weeks' time, we are going to have the next COP, and that will take place in Dubai, in the country that where IRENA is headquartered. And one thing coming out of COP crystal clear is that we are off track on our climate commitments. And this requires corrective action. And what we see, in fact, is the energy transition will constitute the large part of this corrective action, but what we need is pace and scale. And that pace and scale is unfortunately not there yet. That corrective action from our point of view is tripling renewables and doubling energy efficiency action by 2030. So action needs to be taken right now. We shouldn't wait until 2050. If we are really serious about achieving climate goals that were set by Paris Agreement. And we need to have more investments on the ground, and Latin America is not different in that sense. But we are up to the challenge, and we are ready to scale up our engagement and cooperation in the region with the countries, with our regional organizations, with our dedicated analysis, technical support, as well as project facilitation platform. We are ready to work closely with the region and help them in the implementation of their ambitions and plans. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Mr. Gorgas Gurl. We will now call on stage Natasha Marsol del Banco Interamericano de Desarrollo.
Muy buenas tardes. Los expresidentes de Uruguay, representantes de los gobiernos de la región y todos los que están presentes hoy en este cierre de la 8ª Semana de la Energía, por parte del Banco Interamericano de Desarrollo, quisiéramos agradecer al Gobierno de Uruguay, a la Ministra de Industria, Energía y Minería, Elisa Faccio, a la Organización Latinoamericana de Desarrollo, OLADE, y la Agencia Internacional de Renovable, IRENA, por una excelente semana que fue marcada por discusiones amplias entre el sector público, el sector privado y agencias de desarrollo, y debates profundos sobre los desafíos del sector energético en la región. El mensaje principal que hemos escuchado es avanzar rápidamente en la transición energética, clave para cumplir los objetivos climáticos que los países se han comprometido a realizar, pero también acelerar las inversiones en energías renovables y nuevas tecnologías como el hidrógeno verde. Más que todo, lo que hemos escuchado es que esta transición debe ser justa, inclusiva, sin dejar a nadie atrás y sostenible. Por parte del Banco Interamericano de Desarrollo, reiteramos nuestro compromiso para acompañar a los países de la región en este camino hacia una economía descarbonizada y apoyar con soluciones sostenibles y flexibles esta gran prioridad que tienen adelante. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, señora Natalia Marsolf. Esta octava Semana de la Energía es una iniciativa de la Organización Latinoamericana de Energía, la OLADE, que este año, por otra parte, contó con el primer foro de inversiones IRENA y desempeña un papel fundamental al celebrar los 50 años de vida de esta institución que ha promovido la integración, el desarrollo sostenible y la seguridad energética en la región. OLADE, por otra parte, ha asesorado e impulsado la cooperación y la coordinación entre sus 27 países miembros. En este momento, entonces, solicitamos que nos acompañe el secretario ejecutivo de la Organización Latinoamericana de Energía, Andrés Rebolledo.
Muy buenas tardes, un saludo a todos y todas. Presidentes, muchas gracias sinceramente por acompañarnos en esta clausura. Ministro Paganini, ministra Facio, asistentes a lo largo de estos 5 días que nos han acompañado en esta Semana de la Energía, tanto de los gobiernos, principalmente de los ministerios de energía, pero también en algunos casos, en algunos países provenientes de otros ministerios, y también una amplia participación empresarial que hemos tenido en esta versión en particular. Estamos culminando esta octava Semana de la Energía, 5 días de intensa actividad en que nos hemos reunido acá en Montevideo para dialogar sobre los desafíos del sector de energía en América Latina y el Caribe. Y celebrar, por cierto, nuestros 50 años. Fuimos creados el 2 de noviembre de 1973. Nos sentimos profundamente satisfechos por los resultados obtenidos, que nos reafirma la decisión de seguir avanzando por el camino amplio del diálogo y la coordinación regional que nos hemos trazado en nuestro organismo. Queremos especialmente, como decía, agradecer sinceramente a los 3 expresidentes que hoy nos acompañan. Es un honor para OLADE contar con su presencia en el cierre de esta semana y muestra algo que ellos de manera muy nítida y explícita lo indicaron en su presentación, que es posible tener una visión de Estado en estos temas cruciales para el desarrollo económico y en particular en la energía, en que las decisiones tanto de política como de inversión suelen trascender los gobiernos de turno, suelen trascender los ciclos políticos. Por lo tanto, si uno mira la región y quisiera hacer una análisis desde el punto de vista de los casos exitosos, sin por cierto referirme a países específicos, uno pudiera establecer que hay una nítida correlación con aquellos países que esta política energética la han aplicado en una perspectiva con una visión de Estado. Creo que eso marca el sello de éxito del desarrollo en este sector y creo que haber terminado esta semana de la energía con lo que significa y el símbolo de tener a expresidentes marca de manera, como digo, muy clara este punto. Esta semana nos ha permitido profundizar nuestro aprendizaje sobre las realidades de nuestros países, sus visiones para construir el futuro y las distintas maneras de enfrentar los nuevos retos en el sector energético regional que nos impone agendas tan centrales como el cambio climático, la universalización del acceso a la energía, la equidad de género y, por cierto, la incorporación de nuevas tecnologías. El espacio y la oportunidad que nos brinda la Semana de la Energía para conocernos, para dialogar, para establecer vínculos, para ser amigos, nos ha permitido compartir experiencias, pero sobre todo ha contribuido a ampliar nuestro espacio de conocimiento sobre las realidades de la región y los diferentes temas que ocupan la agenda energética en estos tiempos. La profundización en el análisis de los aspectos que ya se venían tratando en la agenda de trabajo de OLADE y la incorporación de otros nuevos temas que nos imponen estos tiempos, algunos como la certificación regional del hidrógeno limpio, el observatorio de metano, desafíos en electromovilidad, el rol de las comunicaciones en los procesos de transición energética, por cierto, la inserción del sector empresarial en un diálogo abierto y permanente con los ministros y autoridades energéticas. Sin duda todo esto contribuye al cumplimiento de los objetivos que hace 50 años motivaron la creación de esta organización. Esta semana permitió asimismo la incorporación de nuevos actores que decidieron unirse y sumarse su esfuerzo para la organización en esta jornada regional. Fue un real acierto realizar el primer foro de inversiones de IRENA en nuestra región, pues sin duda enriqueció el contenido de esta jornada. Muchas gracias por esa decisión también. Perdón, termino. La expectativa, quiero compartir unos últimos números con ustedes que me parece interesante para darle la dimensión a la actividad semanal. La expectativa y atención que despierta la Semana de la Energía es cada vez mayor. En esta ocasión tuvimos 3.500 inscritos. Participaron presencialmente casi 1.000 personas durante estos 5 días. Tuvimos, además, que nos vieron vía streaming casi 10.000 visitas, lo que obviamente amplía de manera importante la difusión de estos temas. 54 eventos se realizaron durante esta semana, 235 expertos que participaron en los distintos paneles que cubrieron prácticamente todos los temas, 27 auspiciantes, 14 organismos, más de 30 media partners que nos han permitido y ayudado a difundir también esta semana. Son cifras que evidencian sin duda que la Semana de la Energía se consolida como un hito anual en la agenda energética regional. Un agradecimiento a todos quienes han hecho posible.
We would like to thank all of you that made this event possible, that is so beneficial for the region. Thanks to the IDB for being with us, coordinating this event. I would like to thank Uruguay once again for hosting this event, for opening its doors to all of us. And also we would like to thank Paraguay for being our next host of the 9th Energy Week. The bar is set very high, as you know. So see you all then in Asunción next year, the Energy Week. And also this is an opportunity for the ministers' meeting And now I would like to thank you all.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Mr. Andrés Rebolledo. And now for the official closing of this ceremony, let's listen to the Elisa Facio, that is our Minister of Energy, Mining and Industry. Please, Madam Minister, you have the floor.
Buenos días.
Good morning. So now we are in the closing ceremony of this event, and it's the moment to thank you all. We would like to thank Olade for having chosen our country to carry out the 8th Energy Week, IRENA, for also being part of this event and hosting for the first time the first IRENA Investment Forum, and we are convinced that a special synergy is created when we have these two events taking place at the same time. So thank you very much, IRENA, the IDB, for always being with us, always providing support to these kind of initiatives. Of course, that we would like to thank all the guests coming from abroad, also to all the Uruguayans attending. We know we have representatives for different organizations. I would like to thank all the speakers, all of you who were involved in the organization of this event. It's a pleasure, really. We are very proud of your work. Also, we are proud of Olari turning 50 years right here in Uruguay as founding members. We are very, very happy about that. And also hosting an event such as this one with such an impact on our countries. It's something we are very proud of. We're talking about green hydrogen, clean hydrogen, natural gas. We talked about gender. We heard Madame Michelle Bachelet. We also talk about value chains, financial aspects, challenges ahead for our countries when it comes to financing sources and investment to develop and to go through this first and second energy transition. We also mentioned the financial instruments that can be used in the different countries. We've had formal events, bilateral agreements. We have talked about climate change. And we have also talked about integration. Integration when it comes to energy, and also when we talk about cooperation. And we believe that cooperation represents an opportunity to make progress in all those aspects related to regulations and how we can structure that integration. As the former president was saying, sometimes we talk about some things that are very formal or abstract. In my case, I have an IT background. I can tell you that many years ago, when I started working in this area, we were talking about integration of all systems, basically that they were all integrated. And at the time, that was like a dream, almost like something impossible to achieve. And now, we use every day, we use internet every day, everybody's interconnected. And today, that comes as no surprise. We use the telephone. People now following this event online. It's natural to us, but 40 years ago, there was a dream. So I think that energy integration, maybe we don't see it. I'm sure that our children and grandchildren will see that Latin America and the Caribbean area fully integrated from the energy standpoint. And then, what else to add?
Honor.
About this presentation by our former president. It's always an honor to have them here. We are all very proud of these opportunities of having them together, and that in a way it shows how important institutions are for Uruguay, something we are very, very proud of. And then I would like to thank you all once again for this amazing week that we spent together, and let's hope we see each other again in Paraguay next year. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, señora ministra.
Thank you very much, Madam Minister. We're now celebrating the success of these events, and of course we cannot ignore the fact that Uruguay now is mourning the former Vice President of the Republic and the Ministry of Economy, Danilo Astori. It's important to mention that, because when we think about the future, about strategies, about someone that was convinced of his ideas. So our regards to the family of Astori, his friends, all the members of the Frente Amplio. We would like to thank our main sponsors, institutions, on behalf of the 8th Energy Week and the first Investment Forum on Energy Transition for Latin America, IRENA, and the organizing team. We would like to thank you all for your hard work and enthusiasm. Let's hope this event was as fruitful for you as it was for us. So thank you in our next edition. Thank you very much.